All right, let's take just a brief look at this guy, Ireland against fascism. Okay, it's a number of people. Well, it's principally one guy, the guy who's writing these posts, so-called socialist Republican guy in his 50s, most likely, perhaps in his 60s even. It's someone who has a lot of time on his hands, someone who's not working or possibly is working part-time, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually retired. Because doing the research for this and writing up 4, 5, 6 posts a day in some cases and clipping together, videos from different people and posting them up and then editing in and putting in little clips from, Family Guy and stuff like this, like that takes time. I think that takes hours and hours. Like if you're gonna do several of those posts in a day, I mean, who has that time? I don't know. I certainly don't have that time, and probably most of you watching don't have either. So this is someone who's not working or not working very much anyway, who has that kind of time to be doing this sort of thing. And by his efforts, he is supporting the power structure. He is propping up the power structure by preventing anyone from questioning what's going on. Whether that be in regards to what's went on in Ireland over the last 2.5 years, or whether it be in relation to climate change, or whether it be in relation to constant immigration, both legal and illegal, and so on, and all the other kind of woke ideologies supported by the system. It seems like he wants to keep the status quo in place. I'm sure he wouldn't agree with me, but that is what he is doing by his efforts, preventing anyone from preventing people from, or trying to prevent people from organizing on a local level, trying to prevent people from from supporting people like Derek Bly and Philip Dwyer, who actually are out there doing things. They're active. They're actively trying to highlight things that are going on in the country. And because they don't go along with these sacred cows of the system, of the power structure, like relentless immigration, and particularly illegal immigration, this does not go down well with Ireland against fascism, and he will relentlessly attack people like that as a result. So he attacks the likes of Philip Dwyer and Derek Bly particularly. He won't attack the likes of, or very little will he say about the likes of Grant Torino and Dave Cullen and Keith Woods, people like that, people who are actually been around longer and who have bigger followings, you could say, online followings anyway. He barely mentions them, and I think it's because they are not out doing street activism. They are not out interviewing people. They are not out doing public speaking so much, on a regular basis, or going to direct provision centres. I know Grant Torino did that stuff in the past, but I'm just saying for the current moment, people like Derek and Phil are very active, and I think that's why Ireland Against Fascism is particularly targeting them. And you have the likes of Limerick Against Fascism, you other NGOs as well who are going after them too. But the other type of person that Ireland Against Fascism will attack is people who are particularly eccentric, people who I guess would call themselves Irish nationalists, but are that little bit more, what would you say? Yeah, eccentric, bit more off the wall, and who maybe are a bit more assertive in their approach. The likes of Andy Heisman, Graham Carey, that guy in Tralee, Paul Byrne. Is it Paul Burney? Yeah. That lady Louise, I'm not sure what her second name is, with long hair, and there's a few others as well. And again, the same thing. He'll focus on one or two things they say, which maybe sound like they don't fully make sense, or which come across a little bit strange, and he'll highlight them, and he'll sort of demonize their character based on them, or he'll take a clip out of context and he portray them as being completely unhinged. So it's very dishonest. Like it's a very disingenuous way of going about your business. But this is what he does, either attacks the people like Derek and Phil who are out there doing street activism, or attacks people who are a little bit more eccentric, and tries, by so doing, he's doing this kind of clever, sneaky kind of sophistry, this kind of guilt by association, trying to sort of portray that anyone involved with Irish nationalism whatsoever is either off the wall, or hates immigrants, or wants to deport everyone, that's not Irish, this kind of thing. And again, it's this Marxian kind of way of thinking, this black and white thinking. You're either with me or against me, the George Bush mentality. Very, very unintelligent. Very narrow-minded, actually, for people who, would think of themselves as being open-minded. They're actually the opposite. They want to put people in boxes. Essentially, they want to divide people. And they want to prevent people from organising, ordinary people on the ground from organising and getting together and actually, presenting some sort of threat to the power structure. Ireland Against Fascism, by his efforts and his cohorts, prevent that sort of thing from happening. So, it's the kind of account that it's useful to take a look at it, actually, to be honest with you. It's in terms of seeing where people's minds are at that support this kind of so-called anti-fascism, and calling everything far right and everything, Nazism and fascism and racism that doesn't support that doesn't 100% support their mentality. So that's what you're dealing with, folks. This is and the last thing I mentioned is this girl Therese Cahill, who seems to be some sort of TikTok comedian, who is very well in with the Ireland Against Fascism guy, and they sort of promote each other's work and so on. And yeah, I mean, again, it's the same thing, picking out certain clips from people, certain lines out of context, and again, trying to portray them as nutters, basically. Yeah, like, he's not actually doing any good in the long term. This guy is not helping, by portraying everything and everyone who doesn't 100% agree with him as being a extremist, white supremacist, homophobe. How is that helping? How is it doing anything but helping ensure the status quo, the power structure remains in place? So well done, Ireland Against Fascism. The 1% are delighted with your efforts.